Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead, sitting here with my good friend from Grow Family Network.
Yes sir, yes sir.
We have been walking around, looking at things here, talking and discussing a little bit about each one of our places, some different things that we do. Now, King here is in, you said 9A,
9A,
B?
9B. Depends
Okay.
on the how the weather
Depends on how the
feels.
weather's going. Oh, that's
Yeah.
what I say about us here. Sometimes we're in 8B, sometimes
Yeah.
we're in 8A. Some years we've been in 9.
Yeah.
Because if it just gets too hot, and we were talking about some of the similarities in the growing. Now, he has a high tunnel. We have high tunnels. It's just that we have two separate ones. Yours is one large one.
Yeah, 28 by 100. 28 by 100.
We've noticed between the two of us the difference in the soils where we both live at. I'm extremely sandy here, so it's pretty wet where
Yeah.
you're at, huh?
I was just mud, so that was a strange thing because usually I'm used to Mississippi, like the red hills, you know, like red clay. So it was a strange thing to see this much sand on, kind of looking like a beach almost.
Yeah.
You know, to say it's Mississippi, I never knew that.
Yeah, I actually have like 6 different types of soil on the property here, but a majority of what we have here is sand.
That's cool.
And it's very difficult. In the beginning, it was very difficult to actually grow stuff here. I could never figure it out. It was either really soft or it was like concrete.
But does the sand offer, like they say, like the drainage? Like, does it drain really fast?
Yes.
Even after it rains?
If you dig down here, probably I'm gonna say anywhere between, depending on where you're at on the property, you between 8 to 12 inches deep. The dirt turns extremely red.
Oh.
But it's not clay. It's mostly still sand, but what happens is over a period of years, as the water goes through the soil so fast, it oxidizes.
Oh, okay.
We have a very high iron content in the soil here, so we have red sand up underneath what little topsoil we actually do have here. Which where you're at, I'm guessing when you dig any depth, you're in just clay, because you say
it starts to get like concrete.
Yeah.
So it's really, which is why our land actually holds a lot of moisture, because there's nowhere for the water to go. So it goes down maybe, I'm gonna say 5 inches, 6 inches, and then after that it starts to, every couple of inches it's harder and harder and harder. You dig down 2 feet in our house, it's nothing down there, you know. So it's like no life, everything hard,
Wow.
almost pitchfork hard.
Yeah.
So it's really different. Hard to, I don't know how the trees do it.
Oh, I hear you.
Because it's hard for me to like even get like a pitchfork. Like I've tried the pitchfork sometimes. So really, really hard. So it's cool to see this somewhat different, but not that far away from it.
Right. So basically, for you to grow anything really efficient, you need to be up out of the ground with a raised bed, what, 8 to 10 inches or something?
So the raised beds are offering us, I would say, just more of a depth of planting for the roots to expand. Like if we grow in ground, it's certain things like the okra, certain things with the harder roots, like the bigger roots. But even tomatoes, it's kind of difficult because the roots can't get through the ground. So they'll get up a certain size, but then they start to struggle to reach a greater height.
So does that mean that you have to put more amendments in the soil to keep it going longer? If you if you got an indeterminate tomato and it bears all summer, do you have to keep adding stuff to it constantly because the root system just runs out of place to go?
Which is why I actually use the manures a little bit more, the fish fertilizer and things like that, because I can't just put, like one little feed in and then it goes away. Like my neighbor, he actually does during the season a lot of side dressing, what they call it, where he'll come and put manure down the side of his. I don't really have the resources to bring that much manure, so having the larger garden is kind of how I get by planting more, and I get less from each particular plant. That's why I gotta plant 50 tomatoes to get what somebody else would
get on 10. Right. Yeah, so. Okay, so I figure you've got that all kind of figured out.
Yeah.
So here we've learned that growing outside is totally different than growing in the high tunnel. I can do the exact same plants outside that I put in the high tunnel. What I put in the high tunnel will beat what's in the field 2 to 1. Now, are you seeing the same thing where you live at?
Like I was talking to you about earlier, it looks like my plants, and that might be just what they call operator error.
Right.
My plants do a little bit better outside during the spring.
Right.
And it's kind of like the high tunnel only helps me during the fall by keeping the temperatures warmer inside. But we got so much moisture as opposed to I was walking in y'all's. I was dry. It's a little bit less moist. Ours is like mildew all over everywhere, you know. So it's and it's because of the water holding content of the soil.
I got you.
To where it stays more wet, so that kind of inhibits our growth a little bit, I think.
So late summer for you and early fall is when your high tunnels really kick in and do good.
Yeah. Or like early spring. So I'm able, as opposed to this year. This year was the worst year,
right?
Because we got that late cold snap. Like right now, my high tunnel should be like exploding.
Right.
But it looks like my high tunnel looked in February last year.
I got you.
Right. So that's the thing I'm seeing this year. So hopefully next year we get hopefully a better better climate, I would say.
Yeah, so we can only hope.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Because that's what hurts is these cold mornings, and then once the sun really hits 12 o'clock, it warms up super fast.
Yeah.
And the plants are not liking it this year for some reason.
Well, I think what you're explaining to us, lots of our subscribers are sending us pictures of their plants, what they're experiencing, what they're at, and they're telling us last year at this time, I was at this point with my garden. This year I'm not, and I tried to explain to them. I said, well, we are moving into what's called a grand solar minimum. Some people don't want to believe in it. Some people do. It doesn't really matter to me whichever way you want to go. But the thing about it is it's actually happening. And basically, are you seeing the same thing where you're at? Stuff is taking longer this year to get going.
Yeah. So that's what I was telling Beverly. If you look at our videos, March last year I did on the 15th of every month I would do a garden tour. So March 15th, April 15th, May 15th.
Right.
I haven't done one garden tour because, like I say, the garden looks like it's February still. So it's like nothing can get in the gear to really get a good growing feel.
Right.
So it like grows a little bit, you get that week of good warm weather, and then the temperature drops and everything kind of goes back to sleep.
Yep.
And doing that over the last 2 months, it's been difficult.
Well, the plants don't know what to do. It's like they sit there and it warms up and they feel vibrant, they're ready to go, and then all of a sudden it just, like you said, it gets cold again. I know we dug some potatoes the other day, and I think I was mentioning that to you. I stuck my hand down in the soil and I was like, oh my goodness, it feels like a refrigerator. And it was so hot outside that the sun was actually burning me, but yet the soil temperature just has not warmed up yet. And that's very confusing to a plant.
Even to the gardener.
Even to the gardener as well, yeah.
Because getting these, like, it's May, isn't it?
Yeah, today's the first day of May.
And it's like, look how cool it is, and it's not like 7 o'clock. Like 6 o'clock in the morning, you can get a little cool breeze. Yeah. But this time of the year in May, it's like we're not supposed to be like out here like, oh man, it feels so cool. And,
well, I still got a long sleeve shirt on. Yeah, I was out in daylight this morning, working, but even what is it right now? It's 10:40 in the morning, and it's really not even hot.
Yeah, it's feeling like 6:30, 7 o'clock back home. This is how our house feels when I'm going off to work in the morning.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So the plants are like, it's fall. It gotta be fall.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's spring, but it gotta be fall. It feels like fall. So they're not really growing. And I've had a lot of things, because I don't really start seeds indoors.
Right.
A lot of my seeds are started out, and I'm having a difficult time even getting. It's my son. I'm having a difficult time even getting a lot of my seeds to germinate.
Right.
Or are they taking longer When as before they was germinating at maybe throw them out there, look like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Something's popping up. So now it's like 2 weeks. I'm like, whoa, it's finally coming up. You know, so that's what we're having. And we're having a ton of rain, ridiculous amount of rain back here. But I know you said that y'all are really not getting any rain.
Now, when we have rain, it's either a deluge of rain, and we get like inches of rain, or we get nothing.
None at
It's
all.
either feast or famine for us, you know what I mean? And that's what makes it so rough here. We can't just have a normal rain to wet the ground so that our seeds germinate. When we get a rain, what happens is the ground gets beat down, it gets packed so hard till we end up replanting a lot of times because they can't push through. That sand, people always talk about when they have clay soil. I've seen this on many people's channel, and I don't usually say anything. But they'll on these people's channels, they'll go, "Oh, we got clay soil," and people tell them, "Well, you need to amend it with sand." And I'm like, "No, you make bricks if you do that."
Don't do. I heard you say that all the time.
Yeah, because I have sandy soil, and I know what happens in the clay whenever it rains. It gets like concrete here. And we always get bombarded because we till the ground. And if you don't till this dirt, you're not going to grow anything. I mean, I've tried the back to Eden method here with all the wood chips and stuff. We piled it like 8 to 10 inches deep one year. And oh my gosh, that year we had more fire ants and termites than we can do anything. And I said, well, we'll just leave it and let it set for a year. We let it set for a year, and I went back and planted in it, and the bugs in what chips was left eat all my plants off.
Come up out of there.
Yeah.
And I think even I've been seeing I still do it because I hate grass.
Right.
Which is like with your garden, being able to implement that row cover may get me to kind of start not wanting to go toward the wood chips.
Right.
'Cause that was my primary objective for wood chips wasn't really to benefit the soil. It was just to keep the grass down.
Right.
Because our weeds compete with our vegetables so much back home. But at least, I don't know. I think people ought to understand if you're doing something in Mississippi, doesn't mean it'll work in Louisiana.
That's the whole point I've tried to get across to everybody.
Yeah, and I think the guy that did the Back to Eden, Paul Gauchi, he's like up north somewhere.
Oh, he's way up north, yeah.
So that may be perfect for you where he's at.
Yeah.
But when you go to another California or something, it's always going to be different.
Always different.
Yeah.
Well, 2 miles up the road here, this guy up here has a nursery. Everything up there is totally different than it is right here. I lived in central Mississippi for a while. And when I moved up there, I was like, I'm going to show these people how to garden. Let me tell you what, I learned right quick, like, I didn't know nothing.
Go ask somebody what's going on.
I better go ask these old people what they doing, you know, because I'm out there, and I call it taller mud, because the more you walk in it when it's wet, the taller you get, because it just keeps sticking to your feet.
Sticking on your feet, on your boots.
Yeah, and you step in leaves and pine straw and mud, and then your feet just get where they get taller and taller, and your feet get heavier and heavier, and I'm like, after it rains, I had to wait like a week before I could plow the ground. And I'm like, here, if it rains today, I can plow tomorrow.
Wow.
You know, so I'm used to this sandier soil, and I was like, well, I guess I don't know anything at all, you know? So you're right. Just because it works here doesn't mean it's going to work somewhere else, you know? What you do in Louisiana won't work right here.
Even though it looks good, like even though we want, like, man, I want to do what Mr. Danny doing out there. You can use that experience. Like a lot of times I've learned how, because I didn't even know how to watch YouTube, because that was one of the things. I saw somebody doing it, and I'm like, I'm going to try that. Yeah. But then it's working for them, but it don't work for me.
Right.
So I had to constantly learn how to maybe take a little bit from each place.
That's it. Yes.
And put it together and kind of make your own thing. And like you said, my neighbor across the street, I tell people that all the time. His yard is totally different from my yard. Like the temperature, the tree, the shading of the tree, everything is different, and it all affects the garden.
It all affects it. Well, like you were talking about the high tone, after 2 o'clock in the evening, it starts going into the shade. It automatically starts cooling it down. I mean, my garden on the hill back here is the same exact way. You know, once 2 o'clock in the evening comes, there's no more sun on it.
And it can cool off.
It can cool off, which is great from about June till about the 1st of September.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But anytime between them, the rest of the year, it's just havoc.
Not a shade is not. You don't want shade.
You
need
don't
more
want
sun.
Because there's lots of mornings me and Wanda go over there. I tell us, okay, now we're gonna plant stuff over here, so that early spring, this is where we're gonna work at. Because in the morning when the sun comes up, it's gonna hit us.
It's gonna hit us right here.
But by the time dinner time comes and we're wore out, we go to the house, and I said, but by 2 o'clock in the evening, the shade hits it, and by 3 or 4, it's done cool back off just like it was in the morning, you know.
That's how on our property, with our raised beds, I'm able to start watering at like 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Even though I'm watering with a hose pipe or a water hose.
Yeah.
It's other than that, if I was like had it full sun, everything in full sun,
you couldn't do that.
I couldn't even keep up with the water. So that has helped me a whole lot. Where I can go into the high tunnel anywhere, and I can start 2, 3 o'clock on the parts that shaded out, and I kind of work my way. And by the time it's like 5 o'clock, I done made it to the next part of the garden that just shaded out. So that kind of helps me a little bit as well. Got to get some irrigation in.
I'm the same way. As a matter of fact, I have all the irrigation stuff. I just don't have it in. Yeah. There's just so many hours in a day, you know what I mean?
And so much energy to put forth.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And then if you're like me, I'm constantly changing something.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go and put this elaborate irrigation system in, inevitably I'm going to change it somewhere.
Yeah, something might be in your way.
Yep.
Something got to get moved. I think a lot of gardeners too that phase out, because I don't know about you, but I used to tell people, like, the gardeners that I used to watch when I first started watching YouTube, a lot of them, unless that channel just expands and blows up, they just
go away.
Yeah, they just go away.
Yeah.
And I understand, having years like you're having this year, you almost feel like you're not a gardener, like you feel like you're failing because your crop is failing. When actually crop failure is a natural occurrence in agriculture.
Yes, it is.
Doesn't give you much to put on a video.
No, but it should be a learning experience.
Yeah.
It should be something that we can gather information from and know that should we cross this bridge again, then we're able to make amendments that would be a little bit different. But not when you deal with things like massive flooding, like you talked about. We have had that this year for the first time. We've had a lot of it. You know, you've got massive flooding. You've got damaging winds. You've got hail. I mean, when you start having these elements of nature coming in, of course, I know you well enough to know that you understand the end time results. You know, and we are facing some end time situations here in the world. And that's not the end of the world. Yeah. But I believe we're coming upon the end of an age that we live in. You know.
I think that, like you say, when you look at the biblical side of it, it's not a thing to fret, but like Jesus say, watch, like see. And I think our job is to see what it is, which is one of the reasons I got the high tunnel. Yeah. Because I saw, like people's been growing out here in Louisiana mustard greens and cabbage. Right. And then we started getting snows now. Right. So a lot of the stuff, even though the snow doesn't kill it, it burns it so bad to where it makes it where if you was trying to sell that, people, it looks sprayed. Like, and you got the, I don't know, we can say the chemtrail. Yeah. Okay. So then you got that. So that's a man-made part of it. So you got the snow and whatever that might be just a regular occurrence in nature. Right. But then when you add the chemicals and stuff that's just all over the world, to have something like a high tunnel to kind of protect a piece of your crop, right? You can't plant everything in there, but if you can protect just a little bit of it and learn how to not work against nature, but know what nature's throwing at you, I think you're better equipped in the end to have just a little bit for whatever age this is we're going into. Right. Time.
Well, I mean, I've watched your videos enough to see too what you have inside your high tunnel usually does pretty good during the summer months, and like you said, it gives us somewhere to move some of our stuff into during the times of the year when it's not conducive for them to be outside.
Yeah.
We're protecting our crops and bringing our trees and our container stuff, all that, bringing it inside, putting it in somewhere where the weather just literally cannot get to it.
Where you won't be like, let's see if it makes it.
Right.
And half the times it ain't gonna make
Half
it.
the time it don't make it. I mean, you and I were talking about this a while ago. We still have plants from last year.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. Now, I've got peppers in mine. You mentioned something about you had some eggplants and peppers and stuff. Mine already have peppers on them. We talked about this earlier. If I was waiting I have pepper plants growing in mine. They're only this tall. I'm looking at 2 more months
waiting
before I have peppers on them. Where the ones that I left
for a bug to get on them and eat them overnight.
Yes.
Know? So.
And during the cooler times, we don't have many bugs. You know, and I try to tell people, they like, what do you spray your stuff with? We don't spray our vegetables with anything. You know, occasionally, now Wanda has used some neem oil before, and I've used some soapy water occasionally. But what I've learned is the healthier that soil is, the less insect problem and the less disease problem you have. It's a known fact. I go back to the Garden of Eden. Why did everything flourish in the Garden of Eden? Everybody always tried to tell me, well, that's because God created it perfect. Well, let's look at what is perfect. Perfect is no disease. It's perfectly healthy soil. If you have perfectly healthy soil, then you got a perfectly healthy plant. If you ever look where the weeds are growing, on the sides of the roads, in abandoned fields and all this kind of stuff, there's no care for the land. You've got poor soil. And when the soil is very poor, then you usually have a bad weed problem.
Which is how life is.
Yes.
So you got a good environment for people to grow up in. They generally turned out, they don't really need much assistance.
They don't need much. Right.
But when the world is going crazy, you got to have 1,000 different programs to raise half a good kid, half a good child. You got to implement so many things. It's because the environment, or the soil, like you said, the soil the kid is growing up in, or the person is in, is so ripped of everything morally that could be good, or that should be there. It's not there. So.
Yeah, it's been completely stripped of anything decent. You know, I mean. And I'll say this, our forefathers were a lot to blame with both analogies here. My dad used to tell me, he said, well, we farmed a piece of land until it just wore slam out, and then we went and cleared off a place and planted new ground. I was like, well, why didn't you just put fertilizer in the soil? Why didn't you amend the soil? He said, we didn't have time to do that. We just got a new piece of ground.
Just go ahead
and that mentality destroyed our farmland. And just like you was using the analogy of children, it's the same thing. We become so busy in this country as adults. It took both parents going out working. The children got through by the wayside.
And it's still the same.
And they get to grow up on their own. And the scripture even says a child left to himself, is basically disaster.
Yeah. And well now it's so much that we have to. I think that's what makes gardening even. Makes it better because you have this place to release, but at the same time it's hard to garden because the world has thrown so much distraction, to where it's hard. When you was talking about understanding the animals and animal behavior and things, it's almost a lost art of people because nobody's out here just sitting out all day.
Right.
Noticing the birds are going crazy over there. Something must be over there.
Yeah, something's going on over there.
So I think we're losing. This is why I like the YouTube community because I think some people, as you see new subscribers come to your platform, to your channel, I think people generally like the prodigal son, right? Parable. People generally sooner or later are gonna gravitate back to the ground, to the earth, to what's healing them. As opposed to going looking to synthetic or alternative means.
I think one of the disturbing things that I see today is that this is a blessing and it's a curse. The blessing side is just what you mentioned. Many people, specifically younger generation, and some of the older generation that remembers, is all coming back to the land.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I'm seeing is there's so many channels out there, and there's so much false information. People they're saying, well, this is the first time I've ever done this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying it like it's the gospel
Yeah.
of growing something, but they never show you results from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got some new person coming along here that's really gung-ho about doing this, and they jump in there and they do it, and they have a complete failure because this person didn't prove it, but yet they put it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person fails, and then they're like, oh, then they fall by the wayside.
That's one of the times I actually stopped trying fads for that
Yeah.
reason. If I can't find a update video or a follow-up video on that video,
Right.
9 times out of 10 I don't try it. I don't try that method.
That's wise. That's wise.
Right. So if I go there and like, oh man, this thing got 1 million views, I'm like, okay, let me look through the channel for update video.
Yeah.
You never see one.
Right.
And you like, if it was this good, where's the update video?
Yeah. Show me your results from it. Show me what you got from the plant.
Yeah.
Show me what you did with it after you got it. You know?
Nothing.
There's nothing there usually.
Mm-hmm.
All people say is, well, I'm going to take this sweet potato and I'm going to put it in this jar of water and I'm going to grow some sweet potato slips. That's fine, and it will work.
Mm-hmm.
But show me how many slips you got from it. Show me what show me where you planted them. Show me how much you got from that one sweet potato. And then show me somebody who plants them in the ground, who carries you along through it, and show me the whole process. I'd rather watch the person who grew it like God intended for it to be grown and showed me the results from it.
I think that separates the novelty type gardener than somebody that's actually growing food.
Yeah.
I think it is a difference because like you say, you put 1 sweet potato in water, you get 4 or 5 slits.
Yeah.
You take those 4 or 5, you got to root them in water.
Yeah.
Then you got to put them in the dirt. Like, how much can you actually expect to feed off of doing it that way?
Yes.
As opposed to, so that's fun.
It's
That's
a fun thing.
That's like that bean that your teacher gave you when you was in
Yes.
school. Like, put the bean in the cup, and then you sitting in class and you watch the bean come up when you come to class every day. That's what I think a lot of YouTube is the bean in the cup idea. Like, oh, this worked. Oh, look how cool this was.
Right.
But people that come to YouTube for the information, they really want to produce.
Yes.
Like when you talked about this year, instead of going for looks, y'all want productivity.
We want productivity this
so
year.
if it don't produce, it's like, why am I out here spending all this time and energy?
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody do the little 1 bean in a cup, and then they get 2 bean pods off of it,
Right.
and they done worked it all spring and summer long, that's almost worthless.
That's completely
Like
worthless.
they say, buy it at the store. Why would I buy a $3 tomato or spend $15 growing a tomato I can get for $3 at the store?
Yes.
So they don't understand that this plant can produce more than that.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the whole thing. I mean, Wanda and I were talking about this the other day. We were at the store. It was a plant store, and I looked, and they had tomato plants in a pot for $5 and $6 a piece. And I just chuckled. I told her, I says, I can't believe people are paying that for a plant.
Yeah.
And she said, wow. I said, 1 pack of tomato seeds might not have like 30 seeds in it, but those 30 seeds will produce thousands of tomatoes. Where this one plant here that you just paid, that pack of seeds would probably cost you, let's just say it cost you $3 or $4 for 1,000 plants that it can produce, or tomatoes, and you're gonna go spend $5 for 1 plant that might produce you 3 or 4 pounds of tomatoes.
If it don't die.
If it don't die.
So, because that's one thing I noticed. A lot of plants that you get from nurseries or potted transplants, you gotta baby them like they babied them.
Yes, you do.
Right, you gotta spray them and keep them fertilized like they did. So if you want to do an organic type thing, don't go to a nursery and get a plant that's been fed synthetically.
Right.
And fed heavy.
Heavy.
You know, not just regular, but fed heavy. It's like a greedy kid. You know?
It's like a kid, like a plant on
I
steroids.
want what I got last week.
I want what I ain't gonna grow if you don't. And truthfully, they spray those plants with a chemical that actually that prevents them from growing and getting leggy while they're too fast.
Oh, okay. Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, because used to, if I bought one from the store, the first thing I did when I come home is I took that plant, and I know this is the weirdest thing in the world, but I had an old person show me this. I would take the plant and I'd mix me up a bowl full of, a little jug full of Miracle Grow, and I took the plant and turned it upside down and held the thing where the dirt wouldn't fall out of it, and I'd slosh it up and down in that Miracle Grow. Just sit there and slosh it up and down, and then I planted it. Because he told me, he said, they spray those plants. He worked at one of these places. He said, we sprayed them with a chemical that stunts them so that they stay where they're at. They don't just grow out and be big and leggy while they're in the little, you know.
Wow.
And he said, unless you wash that off of that plant and put something on it to kind of stimulate it right quick, he said, then that plant will just sit there.
Wow. And
many times it'll just die. And I was like, see, I always talking to somebody. You can learn
that information.
Something.
Yeah. Because I got a lot this year that I actually got more. This is the first year I've got this amount of plants from the nursery, and I guess it is true because it looks like you sitting there like watching it, like waiting for it to grow. Like
it does nothing.
Like when are you going to grow?
Yeah. And we want to blame it on the soil. We want to say, okay, it's too cold, it's this, it's that. You know, the weather's this, the weather. It's just a simple fact. It's got a chemical sprayed on it that prevents it from doing anything.
Wow.
And that chemical's got to wear or wash off. You know.
Which doesn't help me in the high tunnel.
No.
Right? So outside it may have a chance to wash off.
It actually stands a better chance outside than it does in a high tunnel, unless you're sitting there spraying the water in a high.
Yeah, because I got like a soaker hose
right.
or something like that, so I'm not really spraying it as much. So that could be one of the reasons that a lot of my stuff that I do from seed does do a little bit better than.
And the things that gets me is when I was a kid, King, we used to go to the feed store, and they'd have a wash tub, a number 3 wash tub sitting in the middle of the floor with water in it. And they had tomato plants there with a rubber band around them. You get 50 or 100 tomato plants in there with a rubber band around them.
Wow.
No dirt on the roots. They were just lit in that bucket of water. They stayed there for days, you know. And we'd get them things and come home, and my daddy would plow a field up and go ahead and fertilize the road, bed it up, and go down through there with a hoe handle, punching holes ever so far. And my job was to come by and just drop the plant in the hole. No dirt on the roots, nothing. And he'd come behind me and put water on top of it. We didn't push no dirt in him. He just put the water, and the dirt was so soft it just washed down in on top of it.
Indeed.
Them plants growed up and made the most beautiful plants in the world. And today we go and we raise them in these little cups and we baby them things. And, you know, and my daddy'd have a fit if he saw me doing that.
That's one of the things I'm trying to get away from too. So the more, like you say, the more you think of that stuff, it actually helps you to slow down and have more time to do other things.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's fear that I gotta be here. Like when we took the trip, I'm thinking about the whole time I'm going.
Oh, I know.
About, man, when I get back, these things might be on their last leg. You know, so you just want a baby and baby. Even with our kids, like I probably baby them a little too much. You know.
I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. Like, oh, whoa, come here. Like let them. They used to let us fall.
Oh, look, my knees was tore up and skin up, and we rode bicycles and fell off and, you know, skin all up, and we didn't wear no helmets and knee pads.
No.
Go in crying, and Mom would take a little methylate or mercurochrome or something on it.
Wipe it on you, maybe.
Go on, you'll be all right. You ain't bleeding.
Throw them back out there. But I don't know. I think the time for people is a little softer, I believe.
We are.
You know, and people always say, you know, my dad was a man's man, you know, so I think we are getting a little softer. But at the same time, like we talked about, the environment, it's actually being made to make us softer
it is.
people.
They
want us to be softer. And the softer a person is, like you say, you don't go in a strong man's house and take over his house unless you bind the strong man.
That's actually scripture.
Yeah. So that's what I think. The softer our kids get, the more easier it is over time to take control of the country as a whole.
Yes.
On every level.
Yeah. So actually, gardening skills ties in with life skills. They're both similar. I think that's the reason in the scriptures, if you actually look at the scriptures, a large percentage of it deals with agriculture.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout the whole Bible, the Lord uses agriculture. I mean, everywhere in the Bible. And because it's so similar,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in the New Testament, when he talks about some seeds falls on good ground, some seeds falls on bad ground, some stony ground, good soil. Some produces 10, some produces 100-fold.
Mm-hmm.
He used a gardening analogy to tell you what your real life could be like.
Yep. And that's what I think. If more people read, even if you're not a religious person,
right?
Even if somebody didn't believe in God or Jesus or any of that, just to take that book and learn those life lessons,
yeah,
you can put that in the garden. Like you can see, like you said, one plant in the same soil, you take care of it just the same. This one just does better,
Right.
But you won't feel like a failure because you got this blueprint to show you, somebody plant, somebody water, somebody harvest. So that way you saying is, I don't have to do it all.
Right.
You can having help is a good thing in the garden as opposed to, well, I don't want nobody in my garden. Some people like that, don't want, but like you got Miss Wanda. It'll be different if you was just here by yourself.
By myself, it'd be different.
It will be different. So just to have that help, that person, that like Beverly, the days when I don't feel like, some days I don't feel like going to the chicken cage.
Right.
Some days I just don't, like I coming from work, like
totally exhausted.
Just do it for me. Like
just
I
go.
can't go out. I can't even go look at sometimes, even like harvesting the plants. Some days I come home and I don't even want to go walk to the high tunnel. Like I know they got bugs out there. I know they got worms out there.
Yeah.
I need to be out there, but not today. Like just go check on it for me.
Yeah.
To have that help, I think is an amazing thing.
That's called a helpmeet.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible says a person needs.
Yeah.
And, well, guys, I know we've been on here for a while, but we have enjoyed sitting here with Grow Family Network.
Yes.
And guys, go check out their channel. We've been watching them for quite a while now. Have made really good friends with them.
Yes.
Thoroughly enjoy him and his wife Bev and the kids. They're really great people. So check out their channel, Grow Family Network. Guys, I think you'll really enjoy it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, man.
Not a problem, my friend.
This is a little different. This is a little like I'm used to being in that seat.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to sit on
it's
your
a little
channel.
bit different when well, we noticed that when me and Billy was doing it. When we shot mine, it was perfectly fine. Billy goes, that was a little odd.
Yeah.
I was like, but then when we shot his, I was like, it is a little odd. Yeah.
So thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching us, and thank you from Deep South Homestead.